Michael, how are
Bob,
you?
I'm swell. How you doing?
Good. Welcome everybody to the Pop Culture SquadCast Live. It's been a couple of weeks. We got one started this year, but we have a heavy lineup coming at you every week for at least the next 4 weeks. That's already booked, and we're going to keep going after that. But how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay. We don't get out much, not because of the weather, just because we're very lazy. And actually, by we, I'm not referring to to Adrian. I'm referring to me. I don't get out much.
That's
Uh,
fine.
well, I think there's laws about that or something. I don't know.
I agree. That's good. So we talked a little bit earlier, and you wanted to talk about what's going on in the world of comics. And there's something that I kind of want to put up here that happened recently, and we can talk about this. And Jose Delbo passed away in the
Yeah,
last couple of days, and that's surely sad. Really
Jose
great
was
guy.
one of the nicest guys I'd ever met. Now there's a long list of nice guys,
Sure.
but Jose was just, he would walk into my office and brighten up the room. I don't. I'm sure, like normal humans, he got pissed and had bad days and stuff. I never saw that.
Right.
He was just a wonderful guy to hang out with. Terrific artist. His artwork, of course, speaks for itself,
Absolutely.
as it always does. Um, yeah, I was heartbroken when I heard about Jose's passing. I always loved seeing the guy.
Yeah. We absolutely are going to miss him. He's my first Wonder Woman artist, you know.
Yeah,
My impression of her was, besides Linda Carter, was formed from him and, and the Super Friends cartoons. But I know a lot of people who knew him well, who he was their teacher at times.
yeah.
And I know he continued teaching, into retirement. And the comics world will miss him. So we want to share that with everyone and just you know
He has worked with so many people who are distraught this
yeah,
week.
yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
mean, we all suffer losses, and it's never fun. It's never a good thing. I mean, yeah, there's a couple people on my list I wouldn't mind seeing go, but
Of course, that's
aside from personal petty issues like that, there Jose was just at the top of that list, and there are so many people who had the privilege of working with him, either as artists or as editors or as writers. It's very very sad. He also, along with I think with Sarah Byam, got the first and maybe the only creator rights deal at Disney. That was like 20 years ago for something they published in one of their magazines,
oh
and
really.
I thought that was just so cool. How the hell did they get away with that? That was wonderful. So
Yeah, I mean the thing about Jose and Bill's watching, and hey Bill, I'm sure Jose is very sad. There's something about guys named Jose from Argentina that are make
yeah,
magic. And
yeah. Well, I mean, Garcia Lopez is like the next guy on that list.
right, exactly. And it's funny as you're talking about Jose Delbo, of course, I immediately thought, similarly, they're kindred spirits, and their mark is immense in terms of how people have felt about them and how they surpassed or exceeded past the concept of artist or penciler or draftsman. Like there's something that their longevity, their impact on the industry is more than just the art that they did.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and, they made the medium better and more exciting at a time when it needed all the help it could get. I mean, today we have all the movies and stuff that's sort of bringing some folks in, not enough, but there aren't places to bring them into. So I
Right.
understand, I get that. But guys like both Jose's,
Mhm.
uh, who just slaved away doing wonderful stuff during the 70s, 80s, really exciting work. They brought you back to the newsstands back when we still had newsstands, and they brought
Sure.
you back to the comic book stores. So I think the newer generations are doing that. I'm not trying to, say, "Oh my God, we're all in trouble" or anything like that. We're not, because the youngins, compared to Jose Delbo, learn
Yep.
and will continue to learn from Jose Delbo and certainly Garcia Lopez and so many others. I'm heartbroken.
Sure. I was terribly saddened to see it. Um, we have a not to make light of that. We have a big show. Um, we have quite a few folk. We have two guys already lined up, and they're going to be here tonight. We're going to talk to them. But before we get there, I want to remind everybody that at popculturesquad.com we have a newsletter these days, and we want you to go ahead and sign up there. I'm going to put the link to the newsletter in our chat, and if you want to grab that, it's a great place for you to go. Weekly you'll get updates about what's going on Pop Culture Squad. I'll let you know what's coming out on the SquadCast, and go ahead and sign up for that if you feel like it. So it's in the chat for everyone in wherever you're watching.
And everything that's defamatory will be written in a polite manner.
Well, I'm writing it, so you're
Yeah,
not. So then that's true.
there you go.
Um,
My point exactly.
okay. Um, um, that that's fair. So anyway, I apologize. What else? What else has been on your mind? Because I got a couple of things that I want to bring up. But what's on your mind about what's going on today in the world of comics and pop culture?
Well, the latest scandal. What's this original art thing that's going
So are we
on?
talking about Cadence?
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a big deal. I've noticed it over the past week or so. I started to notice some weird posts. None of the people who are on our show tonight were former clients of Cadence Comic Art. But yeah, Bill's seeing what's going on. I don't have all the details. I know that there's some stuff going on, like bunch of really great creators for a long time. So a lot of people for a long time, and a lot of new and up and coming creators have been associated with them. And they're everyone just keeps posting some generic I'm no longer associated with them. If
yeah.
there's other things, please do. If you have outstanding issues, deal with them. But I'm going to figure out a new way to get my art out there. And I reached out to a couple of people that I know. I don't think they kind of want to spill secrets. Rich Johnston is doing his damnedest to get to the bottom of it. If you
That's
if
uh,
you
that's
follow it
over at
at
Rich's.
bleeding. So
Right.
yeah, he's trying to figure it out. It seems, from my understanding, and what I've gotten, is that there has been some unpaid uh, talent, some things that were supposed to go to the public that didn't end up there. There's been some shady stuff going on the delivery uh, of commissions and signed materials and original art, and it's terrible. I can't say with enough magnitude how terrible it is that people are that people would take advantage of people in this industry. It's not We're not talking about millionaires here.
No, and or even eventual millionaires here. We're
Sure.
talking about people who've made great sacrifices because of their the quality of their craft and their love for the medium. And we don't need vultures. And I'm not accusing anybody of being a vulture because I don't know the situation.
Yeah, that's the crazy part that nobody seems to.
Right, but generically, we do not need vultures attacking us or anybody else. It's just that simple. This is a story that I'm keeping my eye on, and actually both of them, and I think
One good one.
yeah, yeah, the good one and the bad one. It's a perfect story for Rich and for many other folks out there, and I'm going to enjoy seeing it unfold. I'm probably not going to enjoy the story itself because
Sure,
I am
I think.
sure friends of mine have been screwed.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same. I I will try and get any more information on it if we don't get it out, if it doesn't come out otherwise, when I get in person with some people, which is coming up soon. Just a program announcement.
Let's get Rich on the show because I just want to see him stay up to 5 in the morning.
Well,
To be honest, he's
yeah,
amazing.
that would be that would be hilarious. Yeah, getting people on from across the pond at this hour is difficult. So, we will eventually get somebody from Europe on the show, but it'll probably be a tape delay, or we'll come on in the middle of the afternoon or something like that. Um, but yeah,
Well, we can do
programming.
both.
Yeah,
We could do both.
we could
We
do
can do
both,
it live in the afternoon and then run
and
the
then
tape.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, we're coming up with all these great ideas. This is fantastic. I just so you know, Pop Culture Squad will be at a couple of cons coming up in the next month. I'm going to be at Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, the weekend of the 8th, and the following weekend we are press press approved at GalaxyCon in Richmond, Virginia. So we'll be there
Ah,
too.
cool, cool.
So that's good.
You know my affinity for Kansas City.
I do. I do. I
I am
am
a
looking.
huge barbecue junkie, and that is Mecca.
Yeah.
Also, some of the greatest people I know
Right. I'm
live
looking
there, hang
forward
out
to
there.
finding them and finding out more about you. So that's part of my journey
Well,
is
Rick Stacy knows more than he should,
I believe that.
but I suspect will be tough nut to crack.
Uh,
We should
I'm gonna
have
pre-
him on. We should have
I'm
him on.
well,
He's a good guy.
I will broach that subject, and I plan to meet him, and also Rich Burchett is going to be there.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
so that's
yeah.
that's what's coming up for me. Um, I want to get to our guests because I don't want to keep them too long, but I do want to take.
Wait a moment. One thing, I'm
Yeah,
going
go
to
ahead.
plug a possible appearance of
All
mine.
right.
Possible. I am now toying with something that I used to do every year. I hadn't during COVID or last year. Last year just because I was lazy. But there's this Windy City Pulp and Paper Con that's
Oh, okay.
in Chicago, my hometown, and I do, enjoy going home and eating as much Italian beef as I can possibly get. And a lot of friends are there, and it's not comics per se; it's old
No,
paper stuff. So you
but I
get
know how
to
much you
look.
like that.
Oh, I know that I get to look at things I've never seen before.
Yep.
And old people who I may never see again. Uh, that was not the show I would go to during COVID because
Sure.
we're all in one small room and we're all very old. So I shouldn't say all of us. That's not true, but I may be doing that. That's the first weekend in April if I can figure out how to get myself there,
Hmm.
and how not to get hurt.
Good. Well, we'll talk about that, and as it comes up, we'll make sure people know you're going to be there. Um, Real quick, do you? I want to remind people to go to popculturesquad.com because Mike put a great piece up yesterday regarding the passing of I lost his name,
Wayne Kramer
Wayne
from the
Kramer
MC5.
from the
Yeah,
MC5, and it's a really great piece. I
thank you.
think you guys should go check it out. It's it's if you read that article, you will know so much about who Mike Gold is and where he comes from and what's in his soul. And I'm sure that the loss of Wayne means a lot to you. And I apologize for that. I'm sorry for that.
Oh no, I mean, I don't mean to be dismissive. Wayne was 75, and
Mhm.
when you get
Understood.
up to those areas, it's you know, if you die when you're in your 60s, it's like, oh, he died too young. Die in your 80s, it's like, well, he had a good run. You
Yeah.
know,
So like you're in the middle range.
we're right in the
You're in that
middle.
range.
Yeah, we're right in the middle. So that's spooky, but I cannot begin to tell you the influence that the MC5 has had on rock and roll in general, on our
Sure.
culture in particular. Um, there's an energy Jack Kirby had that was a rock and roll type energy. Several other artists bring that to their work. And that's the type of energy you got from Wayne and from the MC5.
I
And this
agree.
was 1968, 67, 68.
Yeah.
So that's when it started. So that was a very critical moment. We were winding down from the Beatles. We might not have known it in 1967, but you could begin to tell. And music, you know, was beginning to evolve a little bit. Rock was just going forward a little bit in ways it hadn't before. And like good rock and roll, it was screaming about it.
Yep.
And MC5 was there leading the way,
Yeah.
and that was due to Wayne as much as everybody else, including John Sinclair, who was their manager, who I saw the last time I saw Wayne, which was about 15 years
Okay.
ago. All right, thank you for
That's
the plug.
awesome. Oh, it's great. Let's bring in our first guest, who is I would say if we have a couple of regulars, but he's definitely one of them. He's got a lot of good stuff to talk about, some new things coming up, and we want to bring in America's Thom Zahler.
Hey there.
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Hey. I thought what was in Mike Gold's soul was Italian beef from Chicago.
Well,
It
definitely
is.
that.
Yeah.
That
It
true.
is. That is
That's
my
been a lot of
blood.
him, more than just
That
his
is
soul.
my blood. Oh my God! I wish you didn't say that because I haven't had dinner yet, and it doesn't matter. I want some Italian beef now.
All right, so
I'm
I
going nuts.
know that there's a lot of stuff that's going on in your career that you cannot talk about.
That's true. It's
Um,
weird, but it's true.
And I'm very excited about all that stuff.
Mhm.
Oh,
Um,
are you going to prison?
Oh, they're not taking me back to prison.
Okay, good. Yeah. I feel that. Yeah.
So at some point you will come back and we'll talk about the stuff that we can't talk about now. But
Mhm.
in the meantime, you have a Kickstarter going on right now.
I do, yes.
Let's talk about that. So
Sure.
I'm gonna bring up the I'm gonna bring it up. I have it here. Where is it? Aha. So
Yep, that's it.
tell us what you're doing.
So I'm doing one of those Make 100 projects, and the goal is to create a sketchbook full of new commissions. So the deal is 100 commissions, 100 sketchbooks. Hi, Sherry. So limited to 100 pieces. If I book out to the full 100, it will be a completely new sketchbook. Because you can get like color or multiple characters, it's possible to hit my funding without hitting exactly 100. And if that happens, I'll start filling in with commissions from that I take online or from comic book conventions. So that's the first part of why I did it. The second part is, as you may have seen on Twitter, I had a lot of plumbing issues in my house, so I'm trying to defray the cost of that.
Sure. I mean, listen, that's great stuff. So right now,
Well, not the plumbing part.
No.
the plumbing part's bad. Definitely bad. So right now, it's got 8 days to go, right? And this ends February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day,
Valentine's Day, yeah.
Which is Tom's favorite holiday.
It is the
Is that
day I
true?
get noticed. It's the day I get noticed in comics.
Right.
So now one of the things that's cool about this Kickstarter that you have set up, and I'm flashing. I'll leave it alone for now. But the link is in the comments if anybody hasn't seen that yet. And wherever you're watching this, the link to the Kickstarter project is in the comments. And one of the things you did is you originally started out, you added a layer that's kind of helpful in that there's a book only option in terms of what you can get. So like obviously the concept of what getting a Thom Zahler original, which I have a few, is great, and it is. I think your pricing is fantastic for that, for what you get from it, and you get the book of all the collected things with it. But if you don't, there is an option that people can just back the book level reward.
Correct.
But
that's
now,
one of the things I added.
You're going to have a difference between the book level and the commission level.
Yeah, I haven't figured out exactly what. I think lasers will be involved, literally. But there's going to be something different in the book. If you have a commission in it, your book will be different than the one that's like the mass market book.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I'm going. I haven't added it yet, but I'm going to add a level so that you can get an additional book or two, because I've had a couple of requests for that. I just haven't been able to get into Kickstarter to do it yet.
Great. Have you gotten, as you're doing this, are you getting requests yet, or are you people just backed it? Like,
right now it's just backing. I think I've had one or two people ask about things, but nothing really concrete.
Okay, so what is the most interesting commission request you've ever gotten that you accepted? Because I'm sure there are plenty that you did not accept.
That is true.
And did what's the most? Do you have a favorite commission story? And we're going to ask Tom this question too, because he's going to get that too.
Yeah. So I used to say that I had to draw the Mirror Universe version of Rainbow Dash as a Wonderbolt bro hoofing the comedian from the Watchmen movie. Because just in terms of specifics, that was amazing.
Very specific.
At Heroes Con this year, that was blown out of the park. There's a gentleman who does commissions of Infinity Incorporated 8, 10. It's the one where the Infinitors are tied up and the Justice Society is carving up a world, and he gets it done with different sets of characters and not just superheroes.
That is a Jerry Ordway cover, is it not? Originally,
yes. Hack. Mine will be much better. No.
Exactly.
And so the one that I did is evil mind-controlled Smurfs with Gargamel and the peculiar purple pie man at Porcupine Peak. Laughing in the background as Strawberry Shortcake and her friends are tied up.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, and it's
I've seen it. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Can you do like a mini series or something? Just
this guy's making them, right? I
don't know what he showed me his wall. Yeah, he's got so many. Like he's got ones with superheroes. He's got ones with. I'm trying to think of what cartoon characters. I think he's got like Disney Afternoon. I think he's got like Gummy Bears, stuff like that. And I just love like the specificity. And it's just it's just so interesting to try to figure out all the details and how it works. But it's also like, I actually really love the Smurfs. And like, I love, like, I didn't realize how much I enjoy I didn't realize the things I was reacting to in the Peyo art, not just the cartoon, but in the collections of books that they came out, the ones that were translated over. Because his line work is so good. And I just love that whole French vibe too. It was Belgium. But it was fun to play around with that and draw Smurfs. And my aunt used to have to dress as Strawberry Shortcake.
That is incredible. I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You can you say that again?
Yeah. So Strawberry Shortcake used to be part of those characters from Cleveland. They're created by American Greetings, based here in Ohio. And my aunt worked at an American Greetings store and eventually at American Greetings proper. So when they would have personal appearances for some of the characters, Aunt Mary Claire had to dress up like Strawberry Shortcake at the mall every once in a while.
Okay, that brings me to a story, a very brief one.
Okay.
I was summoned. This is in the 1970s, and I was summoned into Jeanette Kahn's office. She was publisher at DC. Sal Harrison was president, and they were about to make an appearance. And it was sort of a corporate thing, but they had to be dressed up as characters. Sal dressed up as Superman, wearing the original black and white, which is gray tone and brown, Superman costume from the TV series before it went to color.
Mm-hmm.
Jeanette wore a Wonder Woman costume. How do I say this? Filled it out nicely and was very embarrassed about the whole thing. Sal couldn't stop laughing because he saw himself in the mirror and he looked exactly the way he thought he would. And it was just a hilarious moment because, I kind of knew that they were going to be in costume, but I was not prepared for how the reality of the situation. and I was like 28 at the time. It was beautiful. I loved it.
That's awesome.
So I apologize. Grayson's here. I'm trying to tell him that we're not ready for Tony yet. We'll get to the cats soon. Okay.
I should bring my cats in.
Yeah. I wish he would go away. But real quick question. Bill had a question. How long do the 100 Kickstarters run for? Are they normal run for a month?
There's no actual requirement. So it's just general Kickstarter length, but they have to start in January. So mine started on the 15th and I could do 30 days, but I could have done 45, but all the 100 projects start in January.
Okay. One more thing I want to get to before we bring in Tony, because you got some other stuff going on. There is a change in people's access and ability to access Love and Capes.
Oh, is there?
I've heard such a thing. Let me how about something like this?
And I would say long distance. Yeah. Yes, I am soft launching it. The actual announcement will be going out soon. All the rights to the print rights to Love and Capes have reverted back to me, which includes the digital rights. So there are new versions of Love and Capes and Long Distance up on the Amazon store and available at my website. They're on sale at my website. The Love and Cape, the first 4 volumes are technically remastered. I decided to make the word balloons opaque, which was one of the things I did early on for lots of reasons. And I still like the decision, but eventually I went away from it when I did volume 5 and COVID and Home for the Holidays. So they're all retouched up so that all the word balloons are opaque white. They all have new covers. They'll have new back covers. Eventually the originals for all these covers will go up. And I'm actually really happy with how the covers came out. Their new trade dress.
I think they came out great.
Thank you. And at some point in the future, it is very possible that they will come back into print.
I'm very excited. I'm very glad to see this, and I'm really glad that you're able to put it all together. Mm-hmm. I know how much work that can be. I've done it on a few projects.
Yes,
and it's a whole different type of pain in the ass.
Yeah,
but it's worth it because it's your stuff.
I was uploading the files on Sunday so that everything would be ready for Valentine's Day, and I thought it was going to be the kind of thing that I could do over coffee in the morning. And when I wrapped it up at 8:00 that night, it was exactly.
Right. I was at a restaurant a couple of weeks ago in Manhattan, at a barbecue place, of course. with Glenn Howman from Comic Mix, and Glenn was redoing all of the artwork, or putting together the artwork for the next John Sable omnibus.
Mhm.
And Mike Grell is very heavily involved in all of this, and everybody's very perfectionist oriented to getting this thing right. So I'm looking at all these digital files, and I'm thinking, you guys are quibbling over stuff that I would have given my left arm to be able to do at the time we first published that material.
Right, exactly.
And I get it. I would be too. Luckily, I didn't have to do any of the lifting, so I could just comment.
Mhm.
All right.
A lot of work. I appreciate you're doing that, because you're doing it for posterity.
Oh yeah.
And the link to the Amazon page that I was just showing you guys that has all 7 books there is in the comments as well. If you want to go and check that out, you can do that. Please do, because they're up there. We're gonna pause a second on Tom, and we're gonna bring in our next guest, who has been on the Pop Culture SquadCast before, but not live. So, well,
Just have his body lying there.
Yeah, I mean, he was. We did a recording him with Tim Seeley right before Local Man launched, but now he's going to come live. I'm going to talk to him. We're going to see him in his face with his hat on, and here we're going to bring in Tony Fleece.
What an
Tony.
intro.
I made sure that I picked the pony book that the two of you did together. So
Yeah. This is the first time Tom and I have been together and not just talking about ponies. This is going to be interesting.
yeah, no, we're not.
Mhm.
There's. I did get a text from the HBIC of Pop Culture Squad to ask, is this a My Little Pony Squadcast? And I said, yeah. I mean, just to spoil, Katie Cook's going to be on next week, so we'll see how that goes. But let's
She's
not
pretty
talk
good.
about ponies. Let's talk about cats and dogs.
All right.
And loser 80s or 90s heroes. So
I can do that. Let's talk about all that stuff.
sure. Well, let's talk about Feral. That's what's coming first. March 27th, issue 1 comes out.
Yeah.
I have read the first issue. I haven't read. I have the ability to read more than that, but I've only read the first issue so far. And holy shit. Where does it come from?
That's the call out for your review.
Yeah.
It's going to look right on the back of the book.
Bob Harris.
We were going to call it Holy Shit.
I wouldn't be surprised. So Feral, it is beautifully drawn by Trish Forstner, and she is, I think, Walt Disney and Don Bluth somehow had a child and became Trish Forstner, and it's gorgeous, but it is holy shit. There's bad stuff happening. Where did you where did the idea for this story come from differently than, let's say, Stray Dogs? And we'll talk about Stray Dogs in a minute, but let's talk about Feral.
Well, first I want to point out the art is by Trish and Tone Rodriguez on this one. It's
True.
a co-artist situation. Oh, it's all right. I think people are just so used to Trish having drawn the first one that
right.
It's going to be a lot of me making it clear. But the background of this one we sort of had, we knew we wanted to do something different, and we brought Tone on to be like full background artist on this one, and then immediately just started torturing him because I wanted to go real crazy with trees and nature and all kinds
Yeah.
of details. So he's doing like, you know, Gerhard level detail on these backgrounds.
Yeah, he is. And I apologize because you told me that months ago. This is one of the cool things about, you know, knowing people is that I've known about this book for probably 5-6 months now before it even got announced, and I've been excited about it. The fact that I got it in my hands to look at it was great. Tone, I apologize to Tone, and so now we're back to the question.
Where did it come from? So when we were working on the end of Stray Dogs, going into Stray Dogs, we had it was just sort of like a question of like, will this work? Will people read it? You know, we had a pretty good idea that we liked the story and we knew the art was going to be cool. But we just didn't know. I mean, you know, comics is weird, and and the book is weird. So it was a real risk as to whether or not some, you know, people would pay attention to it. And when people did, we enjoyed working together so much, and we enjoyed the thing we were making. But Stray Dogs had a real definitive ending, and so we didn't want to just do more Stray Dogs because that seemed sort of cheap. Like, we were all very happy with the story of Stray Dogs and how it was sort of like closed off and finished, and, you know, like a complete little thing that just exists.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to do more stuff, and I mean, it's not a huge leap to think that the best idea would be to do cats after dogs. So we were kicking around like what our cat story would be. And that took the longest, like just sort of figuring out how to, because Stray Dogs had been by that time so successful, and people loved it, and we didn't want to just do the same thing over again, while also we wanted to do the same thing over again. You know, like we wanted to sort of hit a lot of the same beats, but do something that felt really different.
You wanted to have your cake and eat it too.
Exactly right.
That's something we can do in comics. And one can argue that perhaps we do it way too much. but it is fairly unique to this medium, because it's you and a couple of other people in rooms, and that's it. You know,
yeah,
the
you don't have
publisher doesn't like it, screw them.
You don't have to organize too much to get it made. You know, just getting all those people on the same page. But yeah, we and that's sort of like Stray Dogs came out of My Little Pony, and Feral comes out of Stray Dogs, and so it's just sort of like a continuum of just the work that we've done, and sort of where it's heading. But
Chipmunks next.
What's that?
Chipmunks next.
We're gonna do horses. I think we're gonna do a trilogy. Like, Feral's gonna go on for a long time, and then hopefully we'll have bought, you know, islands, and we can just chill for a bit, and then when we decide to come back, we will do a horse thing and sort of come back to where we started. You know,
it's really hard to draw a horse.
Well, Madman Mike Gold, I don't know if you know this about me, but I drew horses for about 10 years, and they were cute and little, but it's not that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah,
just
I know
put a little more detail in them, and you got it. They're shaped the same. But yeah, so the idea for Feral was basically we wanted to do something completely different from Stray Dogs, but still have it be a horror story told from the perspective of animals. And so, whereas Stray Dogs is like a contained, like indoors pot boiler type situation, we wanted this to be like an outdoors, sort of like a lost and stranded type thing, basically it's Homeward Bound, but with zombies.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the cool part about issue 1 for people who when they you know get excited about it is that there's not a whole lot that goes on, which can be something that you don't want in an issue 1. But there are so many things that are teased, are like, hey, you're telling me things without telling me things. Like, nothing, there's one thing that happens, but there's so many things in that first issue that are, I'm sure, going to be explored throughout however many issues this ends up becoming, and just absolutely have me hooked to go get the next issue.
Well, yeah, we were. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the things that I think we all know, we just don't necessarily realize it all the time. When you're launching a series and you have a first issue, or even a rebranded first issue, you got to give the reader a reason to come back for the second issue, to motivate the reader. This is what drives retailers crazy, because they're ordering it all sight unseen. So if you're going to give them a lot of setup, you're not necessarily giving them enough incentive. Will Eisner taught us that not only do you have to have that philosophy when you're doing a series, but you have to have that philosophy on every page. You got to motivate the reader to turn the page. Not that it's a lot of work and they've already spent the money, so they'll probably turn the page, but they got to want it. So whenever I hear a creative person saying something like you just said, not about the horses, I'm going like, wow, that's a high wire act.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I already try to ask questions at the end of every page, or leave something hanging at the end of every page to get them to turn the page, especially on page turn pages. But on every page, you want to motivate them to the top of the next page. That's for sure a concern. But as far as the first issue goes of this, it was about setting up a lot, asking a lot of questions, but also putting in the kind of action and payoff that you would get, that you'll start to get in all the coming issues. And then I still have the mentality that every issue has to propel somebody into the next one. Not just the first issue, like the second issue is the first issue to the third issue or whatever, like every one of them has to end and make the reader have to run to get the next one. So far that's what we're doing. I haven't had one yet where the ending doesn't propel you into the next one. Hopefully I can keep that going for a few years.
Not only that, but you have so much, I don't want to say competition in terms of a kid at the store picking A over B. You have competition for attention. And that is a problem that we used to have in comics all the time. And then we won World War II. And 3/4 of the books went away. And, I read Superman. Yeah, so what? I mean, if you're reading comics, you're reading Superman, unless you're 8 and then you're reading Uncle Scrooge. It's a tough road. It's a very tough road.
Well, the trick that we figured out that sort of gave us a little bit of an edge, and it feels like cheating a little with the first book we did, is that people really care about your characters if you make them adorable pets, and then put them in danger. So that's sort of one of the things that we're keeping the exact same as Stray Dogs, is that these cats are in real trouble, and we draw them as cute as fucking possible, and then we just try and make sure that the reader's always on their toes.
That's my kryptonite. My kryptonite. This is true. My kryptonite is pets, animals in danger.
Sure. Oh, you can't take it.
I over-identify.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter can't take me to a pet shelter because I freak about they're not being abused at the shelter. They have been previously, and we don't know what's going to happen to them in the future. So reading your stuff is really a chore.
Thank you. No, we had a lot of people that sort of that told us that going in to the first series, where they were just like, "Are dogs hurt in this? Because if they are, I cannot do it." And it was sort of a choice creatively that we had to make. Are we going to do horror comics, or are we going to do animal comics that that are safe. And I did animal comics that are safe for a long time, and now I make horror comics. So I just sort of had to. Luckily, as much as everyone hates that shit happening to cats and dogs, and I obviously hate it too, but I also like to tell a compelling story. So as much as everyone hates it, there are enough people that sort of hate us for doing it, but can't stop. Hopefully can't stop reading it. So.
Oh yeah, we've all been to movies where we were repulsed by the movies and walked away going, "Wow, that was brilliant." Except I was repulsed,
Yeah.
And okay, that's what storytelling is all about. And you have to know your limits. You have not as a creator, as a viewer, as a participant, as a reader. You have to know your limits.
But as a creator too, like there's definitely a line where it goes from being compelling storytelling to just being like animal torture pornography or whatever.
Sure.
No, it's got to help that they're
for young serial killers.
Yeah, it's got to help that they're intelligent too. I mean, that takes not a ton, but it's got to take a little edge off it.
Yeah,
we have an advantage on that one, Tom, and that is
that we're not intelligent.
No, that the average comics reader is much more intelligent than your average non-comics reader.
Mm-hmm.
Long time ago, I was at a Mensa meeting at the University of Chicago.
I'm surprised I didn't see you there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was looking for you, but I think our age difference probably had something to do with it. And they were all like Star Trek and Legion of Superheroes fans. This is a long time ago. Everybody in the room, absolutely everybody. And you'd think, okay, this is like Mensa. You'd figure like we're talking about intelligent stuff. No, we're trying to figure out how to pronounce people's names. And getting into fights over that. But it's true. We do attract a more literate audience, a more knowledgeable audience, and we can play to that. That's okay. We're not writing for 8-year-olds, although that's great, and we should have more comics for 8-year-olds.
Give me a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting my watch now. Anyway, I'm done babbling.
No. I think it's interesting. I think it's a very interesting conversation, to be honest with you. It's something that I think about probably too much, but the intelligence factor of comic book readers and people who decide and are drawn to the sequential art medium. I think it's an interesting perspective that you have on that, and I like that. I want to talk a little bit about the two of you guys working together. I know that Tom has written for Tony. Has it ever gone the other way? Has Tony ever written for Tom?
Kind of ish. I did that pinup for you. That's your characters, my art. Yeah,
that's true.
Which was that for what?
Tom did a local man pinup. It has not run yet.
Wait. What issue is this coming in?
I think it'll be in like 10 or 11.
Awesome. How
to be the nail in that coffin?
Oh, believe me, the nail. The nail is set.
Where is
It's important to have ambition.
What is since Local Man has been brought up? What is the run looking like? Because when we had talked, you guys were super excited, and I, said that there's room for a lot. You were guys hoping for 3 arcs. Is that where we are? Are we going more than that?
That's probably where we are. I hope to do more than 3, but comics market is rough right now. It is real hard out there, and I've often, I'm sure I've even talked about this with Tom, who created his own indie superheroes. But I've often wondered if it makes sense to create indie superheroes, or like what, like me and Tim wanted to tell, and Tom too, wanted to tell the kind of story that they don't tell at Marvel and DC with superheroes, and so we had to create this this book to tell them in, and the great thing about it for me is that we got to sort of do a thing that nobody else had really done up until that point, which is do the like I guess it's nostalgic for sure. The like 1990s nostalgic image comic where like it's made by people who, for whatever, I mean, you know, you guys can say whatever you want about them, but for whatever reason, Tim and I really loved those early 90s image comics. And we got to make a comic set in that world that sort of commented on that, but also told a story about sort of like life not going the way you expected it to, and disappointment and loss and all this stuff. For both of us, it was sort of a divorce comic. And incredibly, people didn't just fucking bust through the woodwork to buy this comic from us. But
they're all wrong.
Well, that's the thing. Like we love it, and the critics love it, and it was on all the best of the year lists, and retailers who stock it love it, and they sell it to their regulars and stuff. But it's real hard out there right now. I feel like if this was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we would have had a much better shot at a much longer run. But as it stands, 3 arcs, maybe 4 arcs, but it's just like we keep doing. I keep making choices in the book that make it so that we make almost no money on an issue, and it's not sustainable forever and ever.
Okay.
Well, if you can figure out a way to not make money, you've done your job in the comics business.
Yeah. How do you make $1 million in comics? Start with $100 million.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's this issue. Are you all caught up, Bob?
I'm about an issue or 2 behind.
Did you see anything explicit recent? Like,
oh yeah, that one. That I read that issue. I think that's the last issue I've read.
Yeah,
I'm a little behind, but let me tell you, brilliant. It was brilliant.
I thought so too. And
I could just see Tim laughing his ass off.
Well, here's the thing. I knew I would get away with it. So what we're talking about, there's issue 7, A Local Man. There's a surprise butthole.
You can go to Tim Seeley's Instagram feed and see it there.
Yeah. But Tim wrote.
It doesn't sound as interesting the way you just said it, though.
Surprise butthole. Tim wrote in the script.
I'm just saying.
Tim wrote in the script that this guy gets a text message from his ex-girlfriend, and she sent him like a sexy lingerie picture. And I thought it would be funnier if it was a picture of a butthole. And then we workshopped it and we kicked it around, and everyone said maybe we could do something less than a butthole, maybe a boob, maybe something like this. I'm sorry.
A boob is less than a butthole.
No, a boob is for sure less than a butthole. You could show a boob probably on network TV. I mean,
yeah, no, it is not. It is a butthole. Like there's no question about it. What it was when you turn that page.
We decided that the butthole was the best fit, and after I sort of fought for it, but I knew that people would assume that Tim Seeley, it was his idea, so that made it great for me.
Yeah.
And then I drew it and we sent it to print, and we didn't get the regular notice that we would get to approve all the pages for image. And we said, hey, is everything going okay? We haven't had to approve the images, the pages yet. And they said, oh, we had to send it to Canada because the American printer would not print it. The American printer must be in the South, or who knows, somewhere where they don't like buttholes. And so they sent it to Canada, and that shipping cost ate up all the profit.
Oh man,
I'm surprised you got it across the border.
That Canadians pro butthole, it turns out. That's what I know about them. They love maple syrup.
Listen, the fact that I just want to say, like, I read that issue, and it was, I loved it. I loved the issue. I loved because it's, we're talking about the fact that there's a butthole, and Bill's sending some comments in here, which is great. But there's a joke that goes with it. There's a story that goes with the butthole, and that piece, that the follow on, it just brings it home, and it's you guys are doing a great job, and I'm sorry to hear that you don't feel like you're getting the the sales that you think that you deserve, because it is really good comics that you guys are making. So
thanks, man. Yeah, we love it. We love making it. We love collaborating. Tim is the kind of person that I love working with, who hustles just as hard as I do. Like, I will send him stuff that needs to be fixed or drawn or whatever, at midnight, and I'll wake up the next day and he'll have already done it. And it's a real good collaboration. I think we fit together really nicely. It's I just wish it sold a little better. But now that I've come on here and told everyone there's fucking buttholes in it, I'm sure we're saved.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you got to give it a little time for the butthole lists to catch
Oh,
up.
sure, yeah, best buttholes of the year.
Yeah,
it's definitely it's number one. I'm sure. I mean, well done. Well done.
My colorist said it wasn't even the first one he colored last year, so it might be riding a wave.
You're surfing a wave.
Yeah,
and gets us back to rock and roll.
I want to touch on something else that we're kind of on, and I want to talk about Image. I know that and Tom and I, it's an interesting concept. I know for you and Tim, Image is your wheelhouse. Like, that was what got you into comics. And Tom and I are a little older than you guys, and that was at the time when we kind of stopped or slowed down in reading comics as much. Like, it was a different thing for us in the early 90s. But Mike, you were in the business at the time when it happened, and you knew them when it was going on. What was your perspective on when Image came through?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're right. About half of those guys I've known beforehand. Some of them I've worked with. Some of them I even kind of grew up with, sort of. So there was that personal element. Anytime creators take their own work into their own hands, take control of the work, I am in favor. I will back you 100%, probably. But so I was very happy to see Image. I wasn't that thrilled with all of the books because there wasn't a lot of storytelling. I understood the limits. This is going to take a while, folks. You may want to take a nap. I understood the limits because you're dealing with a group of readers who make their own stories. They bring their own stories to the project back in the early 90s. Game players, that sort of thing. So you do have more leeway, and these guys understood that. Having said that, I was at Todd McFarlane's house in British Columbia, and he showed me the pencils, I think the finished pages for the first issue and the pencils for the second issue of Spawn. And I thought, hey, you're really onto something. Eric Larson's a guy I'd known since before he went pro, and I love Savage Dragon, and I think there's a few buttholes in there too, and Mark Silvestri. I mean, Jim Valentino actually put me in a comic book in one of his issues of Normal Man. So I was there 3/4 of the way. What bothered me was that I didn't think they were pushing hard enough, far enough, fast enough. But of course, they just started. So I'm being an asshole. Publishing comics is totally different than making comics. They're two different skill sets. And these guys knew how to make them. They had to get a little experience in how to publish them. And once they got that together, and it took a while, I think Image has been a major force in comics. It's brought in new talent, which was not its original purpose to begin with. And when you can do that and do it pretty fast, actually, I think you're making your mark on a medium. So I respect and admire the folks over at Image. We did about, I don't know, a dozen books or so with them. But that was during those earliest days. I think the only people who were pissed off about how Image worked at that moment in time were me and Sergio Aragones. So at least I was in the right crowd. But
what were you pissed off about? What were you pissed off about at the time?
I'll tell you, the biggest problem they had back then was that none of those guys could make a deadline.
Oh, sure.
And run a company. Now, some of them couldn't even make a deadline if they weren't running a company, and some could do a great job doing both. And none of them had to really work together on that level. So I was annoyed with the communication level, even though I understood where it was coming from. I was annoyed that all of the non-owner projects in those very earliest days would get pushed back whenever one of their projects was late, which was all the time. This was a blip in time that was predictable. So I don't want to say I was overreacting. I was reacting to real stuff, but it was annoying because we're working hard, and the book was in for on time, which is not something you say a lot with a Mike Girl project. And
oh, that's right, Shaman's Tears.
Shaman's Tears.
Yep, Shaman's Tears.
Yeah. Yeah. So we it was a bit of an uphill. But I would be proud to have been doing the exact same work 5 years later, 10 years later, because they were ready for the real world and were setting it on fire.
Yeah.
And they still are to a certain extent. I look at the comics.
They got these books, cats and dogs. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buttholes.
You got to get buttholes in there,
It was a weird launch. I was at Kubert when the book started coming out.
Yeah.
So we heard about it, it was before internet. So you would hear stories, especially from other creators. And I don't mean this as dismissive as it's going to sound, but like there had been creator-owned books before, and it launched with Rob Liefeld, and that like Rob has a certain energy to his work, but he was not the tip of the spear that Image would become. So when you saw what he was doing, it felt like it wasn't until Will's, because I loved Wetworks, and Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, when they started doing stuff, things started going in a different direction. Like you saw what they were capable of. I'm trying to think of an appropriate example. I guess it's kind of like starting a streaming network and saying, "Hey, we have Adam Sandler."
You mean wildly popular Adam Sandler?
Yes, wildly popular Adam Sandler, but not not Apple TV. Oh my God, this is what we're doing now. You didn't see from the outside why it was going to be different than. You didn't see why it was going to land different than everything else.
Yeah, I think Spawn and Savage Dragon are sort of they sort of showed up and showed you like what the possibility was, what it was going to be. Like Spawn, I think Spawn is that first year of Spawn is like the best Todd McFarlane comics that ever existed.
I agree with you.
And he came out, like he was wildly popular. He went away for a year, and then he came back completely different. He still had a round mask or whatever. He had a similar mask, but aside from that, it was a completely different looking thing. And yeah, that you see that and you go like, oh geez, this is a whole different thing. But for me, I mean, it's all a blur for me because I was 14 years old. Yeah, I was 8. I was 14 years old when all that stuff came out, and it all to me seemed like it took forever for them to come out, or they all came out at the exact same time. It depends how I'm remembering it. But yeah, I just remember being completely awash in those things, and it had a real effect on. I mean, you know, if somebody asked me like what my favorite comic artist now still today as a discerning adult, I'm still like, well, you know, J. Scott Campbell and Rob Liefeld, and you know, like the list is the same as it was when I was a boy.
One of the things that we need to remember when we're talking about the roots of Image Comics, the beginning of Image Comics, is that they launched at a point in time when the direct sales market hit the fan. It was a very tough time. It was, my friend Gary Calabuano referred to it as a market correction, but it went on for a few more years.
Yeah.
And they had to overcome that and make their bones while doing so. And the fact that they survived it and thrived is very much to their credit and to their perseverance.
Well, they helped a lot of stuff because they were right before the crash. Because 92 was the year of the Image tent at Chicago, because I was there for that.
Me too. I didn't see you.
Yeah,
I
was the same height.
Yeah, and admire Tom's microphone, because like it's freaking great.
Tony Bennett over here.
Hey there.
It reminds me of my old days on broadcast.
It's just that my desk is not at me talking level. So
no, they were
Chicago Comic-Con.
They were the boom and the bust, right? Like they were there.
Well, when things went bust, that's why Terry Moore was with them for a little, distributed through them, and why Jeff Smith. I mean, they were able to keep some of the independent books that were not going to be able to keep going when everything was contracting. When everybody, it seemed like the industry was going, I'm going to make a stupid move. Ha ha. I will respond by being even stupider. So.
Well, that's what we as humans do best.
I feel like
Especially
they could have
comics,
Tyrant going too if they would have published Tyrant. That's my sort of like cinema speculation. My what could have been if just because there's an ad for Tyrant on the back of some Image Comics, and I always go like, fuck, why didn't they just publish that book? Like we could have like 10, 20 issues of that thing. Stupid satire.
So we've talked a little bit about Local Man. We've talked about what's coming with Feral. What is you have another book coming out like a couple weeks later, Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
And so this seems like right up everybody who's here's wheelhouse. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's me and Dave Wachter, who's an artist that I worked with when I first got into comics 15 years ago, probably. We were friends on the internet, message board friends, and we made a couple books together that nobody ever really saw. And then we went our separate ways, and both of us sort of made a bunch of stuff and got better and better at doing this. And now I was approached by Boom Studios after Stray Dogs, and I showed them sort of, I've got a document that's got all my brilliant ideas, and they picked one out of there that is one of my favorite things. It's called Uncanny Valley. It's like a coming of age story about a boy who feels like he doesn't fit in. He doesn't. He has just a single mom, and they had no real family, and he always moving to different towns and doesn't feel like he has any culture or any sort of connection to anything. And then he finds out that he's the reason for this is because he's part cartoon, and his grandfather shows up. He's sort of like he starts to manifest cartoon powers, and he starts to be attacked by these other cartoon characters. And his grandfather shows up, who's like basically a Yosemite Sam, and says, "Come with me if you want to live." And his mom, who does not get along with her dad, or does not sort of like any part of her, like that side of her, is very against it. And due to circumstances, he ends up having to go on the run with his dad. So it's like a coming of age Roger Rabbit, basically. It's an adventure story with just like a ton of different cartoon characters, and it's just achingly beautiful to look at. Dave Wachter is drawing it in like pencil, and then doing like a Fiona Staples type situation with the backgrounds where he's painting them in himself. It's just really beautiful looking. And the contrast of this fully painted real world and then just flat cartoon characters sitting on top of it is really striking. And it's the sort of trick that we played in Stray Dogs and in Feral, where our characters are cartoony and the backgrounds are more detailed. But in this case, there's a bunch of characters who are also more detailed. But it's coming together really beautifully. I'm super excited about it. And it's literally one of my favorite stories that I ever came up with. That has moments in it that I'm so excited to get to. But again, we have to sell well enough to get to them. So
you captured my interest immediately when I saw the piece, the ad page in previews this past week. I think it was. It just came out last week, and previews is only full of like 500 pages worth of exciting new shit,
right?
And then there's also Marvel and DC, so to stand out from all of that, to me going, holy crap, that seems interesting.
Oh, thank you.
That's good. We'll see if the book is worth it, but
see if it's any good.
But the ad's great.
I could share with you if you want to see artwork, or that does not work on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put the picture up, the cover, but if you can, do you have the ability to share? To present?
Oh yeah, present. Share screen. Here we go. Okay, can you see that?
No, I got to edit it. I got it. That's fine. Go ahead.
All right, so this is the 2-page spread that Dave did, and like that's what I'm talking about with those backgrounds. Like it's just so pretty to look at, and and he does such a great realistic, like that's his real world stuff. This is our main character, Oliver. I'm not going to show you all the pages because
the palette is wonderful, and I don't know who printed that, but they did it right.
That's you mean in the previews?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen it in person yet. I had to go this week and check it out. But yeah, this is the reveal page when his grandpa shows up, when this guy's named Pecos Pete. But yeah, it's just like you see that contrast between those two styles. I feel like that it's something really appealing about it, and it comes from when I was when I was a kid, Roger Rabbit came out, and I thought, this is how everything will be now. Like we've reached the greatest thing that's ever happened, and now everything will just be like this. There's just going to be cartoons and everything, and then there wasn't really any. I mean, there was like Cool World and Page Master and like a few things where cartoons.
I had to see Cool World. Cool World was the first movie I ever went to by myself because nobody else would go.
I would have gone with you. You could have taken a little boy with you to see Cool World.
That
wouldn't. I don't know if that would have worked.
Ralph actually used to hang out at our friendly neighborhood comic book store here near where I live, and a lot of us would get together on Saturdays. A lot of us who do this stuff for a living, just to hang out with one another and to make really great insults about people who weren't there. And then Ralph would come in and everybody would shut up and nobody would say another word until he left. And at first I couldn't understand that. I mean, his work speaks for itself too. But then he finally started to talk and I realized. So there's a lot of those animated films of that period of time that I don't think I had actually seen. That's petty, but that's the way it is.
What do you mean, his movies?
Yeah.
You didn't watch them, or you wouldn't watch them?
I had no desire to. I had seen the early stuff. I mean, the Frazetta was probably the last one, but that might have been out of order. It just didn't click for me.
Sure.
Yeah,
apparently other people too.
The storytelling in them was always pretty threadbare. Like it was and the animation, like it was like he put it all together with popsicle sticks and chewing gum.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
Sure.
Right.
It felt like he ran out of money in the middle
Yeah.
of stuff sometimes.
all the time.
And he probably did.
And that's the thing that's always disappointing about like there's a sense of nostalgia for me about like Heavy Metal the movie, right? If we're talking about something like that, I first of all, the soundtrack's great, but
Don't
You know-
say that to Chaikin.
I won't. Thank
They
you. For
locked him. They
shut
flew him out to California, locked him up in a hotel room for a week, and he worked on that movie.
Okay, I'm not. Listen, what I'm saying is the the magazine was far superior to the movie.
Sure.
That's my point.
You like the book better.
Oh yeah, because the storytelling in the book was so much better than what they were able to get and translate to the screen. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah.
I wonder what their original concept was and what the studio got it down to. But
Sure.
that's just me being cynical for some reason.
I think I should ask John this question. He might know. He was working for them at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never talked to him about
Ken
it.
Workman we're talking about here. Yeah.
Anyway, this book is sort of like it's my contribution to that genre or that subgenre of real life cartoon stuff, and also my continuing challenge to myself, making my life a living hell of presenting something that looks cartoony and trying to get people to buy it, which not the easiest task, as Tom knows.
It is not. No.
Well, so I kind of want to throw a question at the two of you. You know, you are both very, very gifted storytellers, and you're both gifted artists, and you're both gifted writers, and you have this. You know, I've spent time talking to both of you. You know, where we're just talking about stories. We're talking about where you want to go with things you want to make. Where does that come from? Why is it that is the thing that moves you, that fuels you? Besides money. Besides money. I know that's never your answer, but besides the money.
There are easier ways to make money.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
I understand. That's my point.
I don't know. It was just like the currency in my life. Like everything was, I was reading comics from 2.5. So like those kind of stories and trafficking in those. And I think that actually, I think growing up in the 80s films had to have more stuff because they couldn't show you more stuff. So even in Star Wars, when they're talking about the Clone Wars, you're like, oh, what the hell is that? Or in Tron, when they talk about we fight for the users, and you're like, the programs have an entire religion that's never touched on, but it just builds out their whole world because they couldn't show you things in a way that now, if you see any character in a Marvel movie, you know that they're going to get a spinoff at some point. You're like, oh, hey, that's the leader. That'll probably be a thing. He'll
be back.
I think, like, yeah, there's a participatory aspect of it that you built out. They would leave you with hooks that you could tell stories about, and it just got in your head. If you were disposed to that, you started doing that all the time and trying to figure out what things were. And they couldn't show you the world, so they had to imply it. But that gave you a lot of places to be really interested.
That's fair. That's interesting.
I agree. That's interesting.
Mine's just is similar. I mean, it's just an obsession with stories and with books and movies, and I'm constantly inputting. I'm constantly like hearing stories or reading stories, and I've always loved comics, and I've always loved drawing. And I'm the same way. I'm obsessed with stories. I'm obsessed with artwork and finding new artists and finding interesting compositions or designs and the storytelling part of it, though, like where I find myself wanting to make stories or like where do your ideas come from, are that I always find myself watching stuff or reading stuff and they'll do something and I'll always think of how I would have done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so so much of the stuff that I make is just sort of like how I would have done it. You know, like when I watched 101 Dalmatians, I was like, she should kill them though.
Yeah,
I still feel that way.
It's a good character. You wanted to win.
No, storytelling is not just a craft; it's a disease.
Right.
And once it gets in your system, it's a virus. Once it gets in your system, you just got to do it. No matter how you choose to do it, there's a million different ways and a million different media. You can find the right fit. Tell that story.
Well, and so much of the how I would have done it is often, and I think Tom's the same way. I'll watch something or I'll read something and I'll go like, I like that. I like all the parts of that, but I wish it had more heart and I wish it had more emotion and feeling in it. And so that's what I try to do is set up stories in a way where it has the most, like there's the most, like it's a sponge that has the most little holes in it that I can fill up with emotion and drama and you know, like interpersonal stuff. Because that's the stuff that sticks with me the most in stories. It's not necessarily, you know, it's not necessarily like Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. It's when Princess Leia kisses on the cheek and says "for luck," you know, like that's
right.
That sticks with me.
Right, because you've seen the action sequence.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that, oh, well, look, they've done something new here. Well, they have, because, you know, we have the effects, or we have the budget now, or you know, the guy from the studio was sick that day, you know, things like that. But the stuff that comes from the heart, that's 100% character driven. But you, as the writer and artist, are driving that bus.
Well, and the reader has a connection to it that they don't have to the explosions and the violence.
Right.
Hopefully, violence too.
I hope
Yeah.
so. Yeah. We hope.
Yeah.
There should be that thing that resonates with them, that, you know, that one true thing that vibrates, that even if it's not your experience, it's a thing you can relate to.
Right.
Right. I mean, we live very isolated lives, but through the miracle of television and now streaming and instant communication, we can sympathize. We can be exposed to so many different things. We can give our readers more of the benefit of the doubt than we could have in earlier generations, because they're exposed to more stuff.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think about storytelling a lot differently, and it's weird to be my age and continually to grow. I mean, it's just I thought I would have figured it out, but I haven't. But
it doesn't get better.
Thank you. But one of the things, and I kind of want to bring this back to comics, because I mean, I've loved comics since I could read, and it's only recently that I've kind of been able to find, put a finer point on it. There's something about the way that a story is told in comic form when it's told well, and a lot of comics are told really well. A lot of stories are told really well. And it's something we kind of said earlier, where, Tony, you were saying, you want to get somebody that last page so that they'll go buy the next book. And it's something that I've been talking about with some other people, that it's not even that. It's where, how do you lay out the page so that you save the reveal for the page turn? How do you put it so that, like, there's Mike and I were talking kind of about the latest issue, the latest Ultimate Spider-Man, and there's a lot of really good storytelling in that book in terms of where the page turns are, where the panels are that are going to get you, and the panel size and stuff like that. And I think that that's one of the things that you guys do in certain ways. And I say that, and it's I know it's kind of ironic because Tom's usually in a 4-panel grid, but
I'm loving capes, yeah.
But still, it's where the joke is. It's where the eye falls, where the how the letters are put. The word balloons are put in a panel so that you follow it
Yeah.
properly.
I had to do that in Home for the Holidays. I had to write an extra page so that Dark Blade's reveal in the last part of the book happened on the right page.
Yeah, yeah. There
I
are
always-
technical issues,
but
you know.
being able to see that, being able to see the scaffolding and appreciate not seeing the scaffolding is what constantly brings me back to comics. Like if I get, there's half of these are unread, but and that's just a very small amount. But like every time when I can get the time and just sit and read for hours and hours, it's this, that's the thing that brings you back. It's that turning that page, seeing the image, reading the page, reading it. Sometimes you see it, like that's the concept of when you turn the page, you're going to look at it and you're going to get that image. And if it's something that I shouldn't know yet, you can't put it in front of me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I plan them out. I have I make like these dummies of every issue that are, so because I'm like a visual tactile person, I have, all my page turns are, I'm not showing this correctly. You know what books look like.
Yeah.
I've seen
But,
them. I've seen them in
out.
movies.
So you actually do it physically and
Yeah.
make sure that when as you're laying it out.
When I'm making my outline, I draw it all out. I put an actual book together so I can look at it, so I can look at how the pacing works and the page turns work, and then I have an idea of what the lettering is going to be, and but it's super important to me. That's like working in this medium. One of the most important parts is figuring out how to pace and how to do reveals and how to do, like, you use all the tricks of it that you could give somebody all the same stuff, the same artwork and the same script, and tell them to put it together. And if they put the pages in the wrong, if they put a page, like a text page where page one is, then the whole thing's screwed, because all of a sudden every page you flip to, there's no surprises. And,
Right.
and if they don't put the letters, if they don't space out the word balloons enough, then your setup and your punchline, like they are part of the same sentence, that doesn't work either. It's a lot of.
We used to have a real problem in commercial comics back in the days, particularly when we were doing like 17-page stories, but even 20 and 25-page stories, because over at Marvel and DC and Archie and Harvey, whatever, we had ad flats. Which meant that the advertising went on the same page numbers in all the books being printed, usually that month, but definitely that week. And it was a pain in the ass to change that. So if you had a 2-page spread and it fell in the wrong spot, you were screwed. You were totally screwed. And every once in a while, including me, you make that kind of mistake. Now, of course, I blamed it all on our production manager, but those mistakes happen. So it was even harder. It was like you were making, like you're doing Japanese paperwork. How do I fold this right so this story looks like a crane? And then you realize you're making cranes, not making stories.
Mm-hmm. There's a story I heard about Ron Howard when he was doing Apollo 13. The reason he was able to direct it so well, or the way he did, is because he had lived in TV for so long. He could think in terms of like 30-second shots, which is all the Vomit Comet waitlist stuff. But there was no translation. He wasn't trying to figure out how to tell the thing the way he wanted to. He was so immersed in that it just happened. And I know, reading comics as long as I have, I think it's the same for Tony. Like, some of that stuff just gets so baked in that like you don't even realize you're doing it. I got a script from an editor at one point for something I was helping out with, and when I got to the first double-page spread, the immediate thing I thought of was, wait a second, this is not, like, you're on the wrong page. You can't do that. How did you not count your pages? Because it's just second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, Bob, you asked about working with Tom early on, and I feel like we sort of zipped right past it, but that's one of the cool things about working with Tom and working with Seeley too, is somebody who's an artist himself, who's drawn comics, who understands like what a page is going to look like when they're writing it is really special to be able to work with somebody like that, because on the other side of that is, working with just straight writers, which is, that has its advantages also sometimes, but a lot of times when you're working with somebody who hasn't drawn comics versus working with somebody that has drawn, like if I'm drawing a Tom script or a Seeley script or something like that, I never run into the problem where I'm just like, how is this all supposed to fit here? How, like, they've given me a page where every panel is going to be the same size, or the characters are going to have to be the same size. Like I don't run into those sort of problems just because the Tom and people who have drawn comics sort of internalize that, like you were saying, like they just sort of intuitively know what fits on a page and what looks good on a page.
See, first of all, thank you. Second of all, writing the pony scripts when I wasn't drawing them, that was super hard. That was one of the harder things that I've done, because I've never had to translate that stuff for somebody else, because like I would just figure it out, or when I was writing, it was all internal. So I would rough out all the pages for the books that I did for you or anyone, but I just never gave them to you unless there was like a really specific effect. It's like, I know this problem can be solved because I've solved it, but I don't want to tell you how to do it. I want to give it to you and see what happens.
Right, because your creative efforts and his creative efforts, whoever his might be, are different, and each of you deserve a shot. Jules Pfeiffer, 50 years ago, literally, it's 50 years now, in The Great Comic Book Heroes, the book that created all of our jobs, mourned the passing of the golden age of comics because people had to earn a living and publishers were drying up. And he said very few people were drawing their own comics anymore, writing and drawing their own comics, or penciling and inking and writing their own comics, so on and so forth. They just didn't care. And even though I was like, 15 when I read that, I thought, I think they care. I think they're trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And that's commercial art for you. Commercial art and comics is part of commercial art, so is movies and writing books and television and all that. Music. It's all commercial art, which means that if you're not doing the equivalent of Taylor Swift, you're not going to be able to pay the rent. And the comic book people who are just used to not paying the rent anyway have a leg up in that. I always prefer working with a writer who knows how to draw. They don't even have to necessarily be good at it, or an artist who knows how to write, and they're better off at that. They figure it out after a few decades, because it's more from the heart.
Yeah,
it's more from the heart.
Well,
it's more of who they are.
It's because, like everything else, Star Trek to me, Kirk could do everything that everybody else on the ship could. He just wasn't as good at it. But it meant when he asked them to do something, he had an inkling of what was what he was asking them to do. So if you know how to draw, if you draw in comics, it doesn't matter if you're drawing that comic. You have my scripts often would have apologies when I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to draw this really difficult thing, but I promise there's going to be an easier page coming about 2 from here. Yeah. And in fact, I know that's in one of your scripts, Tony. It's like, but I'm going to have a full page splash you can sell later. Yeah. Just that kind of stuff where like you have an idea of what you're trying to ask for, and it helps inform the decisions that you're making.
In Army of Darkness, I wrote a page for Justin Greenwood that was just a shot of a bathroom door with like blood coming out underneath it, and I was like, take the rest of the day off, take your kids to the park, have fun.
You see, that's when we bring people in from other media, book writers, or more likely movie people, actors, writers, directors, to write a comic book because they really want to, because they grew up reading the same stuff. So they really want to do it. I, as an editor, had to break them of all of their old habits. The ones that bought them the mansion in California.
Yeah, break them of that.
You had to break them of that because it's a visual medium. Well, so is movies. Yes, it is, but it's totally different.
Yeah, and I've heard that with like comic artists going into storyboard that they move the camera too much because that's what you do in comics, but you can't do it in
Like you have to move
that,
the camera in comics.
yeah. And there is a genre of comics that feel like rejected screenplays,
Sure.
and you can tell when they're not like I thought a lot of the first few Buffy comics felt like spec scripts that didn't get made. And then when Joss Whedon wrote Angel, he had the appreciation of, oh, I'm going to do stuff that I can't do in the show. And I think that like he was actually writing comics. He wasn't converting scripts.
Right.
So Tony, when you write for other people, do you draw it out?
I don't draw it out, but I do visualize what the page looks like when I'm doing.
I mean, I've heard of.
I do the mock-up, and I have like little doodles in there, but I don't go so far as to actually lay the whole thing out.
I mean, I've heard of other people who, Tom knows this story, of other people who who are writers, and they provide the thumbnails that are with, and all of the direction apparently is in the thumbnails. Tom and I got our ears full of somebody very upset about somebody's experience with a writer who did all their direction in the thumbnails. But like I have heard of people, a lot of people where they will do what Tom does. They will as they're writing and scripting, they will draw a thumbnail and then ask the artist if they want to see it or not.
That's what Phil Hester does that. And a lot
Oh yeah, that's Phil did tell me that.
Yeah. On the other hand, then there's people like Harvey Kurtzman who would write up the story, lay it out in blue pencil or what have you, send it to the letterer, Ben Oda. Ben Oda would letter the whole job, and then it would go out to the artist. And I'm thinking, like, holy crap, you got Willie Elder and Wally Wood, and I mean the list goes on forever. And they're doing that? They're going along with that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they are actually. They are. Well, there's got to be a reason for it.
Well, the pay was pretty good, and also sometimes that's nice, like if the job just shows up and they're just like, go ahead and just draw this. It's like, oh, all right, cool.
But there's less to draw because you're not going to get covered up by lettering.
Yeah.
But also, that's right. But also, you have respect for the guy who's writing it, who's providing it all. Because if it didn't work, certainly people like, Kurtzman and Elder were friends since like they were babies. But a guy like Wally Wood, for whom I've had enormous respect, he wouldn't put up with that bullshit if he didn't go along with it. If it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you got to keep an open mind. Every dynamic, every writer, artist, editor, letterer, colorist dynamic is different. Everyone.
It's interesting because thinking about that, I do the thumbnails for Stray Dogs and for Feral. Everything else I write, Uncanny Valley and Army of Darkness and whatever else. That stuff I just do scripts, and I might have sketches laying around, but I do thumbnail those. And the last Feral that I wrote, issue 6, I didn't even really write it. I just outlined it and then I thumbnailed it because it's like a different kind of story where it wasn't as dialogue heavy, and so it was something where it was just like, well, it'd be easier to just draw this out and then letter it from there. So.
Yeah, but under that cap of yours is a brain that thinks visually.
Yeah, 100%.
And that is not a natural skill for most people. It's an acquired skill. Yeah. And you guys both, and so many other people in this industry, and so much of the reason why I love this medium, is that you can think visually, which is the world that we all live in.
It definitely it pays off in comics, and it pays off. Like last year I wrote a bunch for TV for cartoons, and that was a weird situation, being like the only artist in a room full of writers, where it was like having a free open lane. Like it was like the carpool lane, because it's just like these people would just be talking about whatever story plot, and then I'm the only one that would just be like, there's trees in all these stories, right? Why don't we put the trees together? Because I see what it looks like while everybody's talking about it. That character is too big to be in that story. You should put it with that smaller character.
Right.
Stuff that you don't think about unless you're thinking about how to draw it.
Well, I mean, that's very true, and people should not be faulted for not being able to think that way, because it is a skill that you have to work on.
I fault them, Mike.
And they're just lesser people.
Yeah,
that's right. They're just
This is why we do this. I want to, we're thank you guys for hanging with us. We're getting near the end here, but I kind of want to do something. We're doing something a little bit different this year. Mike doesn't even know about it, but I want, especially when we have
physical challenges.
More than it's a little challenge. It is a little challenge. It is the question of the day.
Oh,
right?
Oh,
So I want to kind of talk about, so this question of the day, since we have multiple people here, I want to talk about, what is your favorite comic book cover? I know Mike's involves a giant gorilla.
No,
okay.
Although that's up there, but
of
the
top 10, 9 of them have giant gorillas on them.
Maybe 8.
Okay,
because the first 2 do not.
Okay, I want to hear yours first then.
Really?
Yeah.
My favorite cover is Hot Stuff number 3, drawn by Warren Kremer. Hot Stuff is sitting on top of the sun, sort of sunbathing, but on top of the sun. And he's very happy to be doing so, but the sun is really pissed off. That's a great cover. And if I were like 6 years old and I saw that, I would buy that in a heartbeat. My second favorite is Jim Steranko's Nick Fury in Space cover, which probably makes a lot of people's list. Those are my 2 favorite covers. Hope I bought you guys time to sort it out.
Not enough, Tom.
I have an answer, but I don't know.
Yeah.
When you ask something like that, I can't immediately go through 50 years or more.
You don't
of comics that I've
that's
seen.
not
Yeah.
Nobody expects that. This is like
I
the kind
do.
of thing where it's Mike does.
Where Mike is. Go ahead.
It's hang on, let me get it. Here it is. Let's share it. This is it, right?
Oh my God! Look at that. That's the cover.
Gets him every time.
Yeah.
I love that cover. Oh well.
All right.
9.4.
It doesn't have to be like there's you can say, like, if you ask somebody what's your favorite this, I never hold it against people where they say the thing, because whatever you're saying is the thing that hits you at that moment. You may walk away from somebody and say, oh yeah, no, it's that, it's this,
Yeah,
but
I know
whatever you say now will mean something to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the first one that popped into my head was Fury of Firestorm 27.
27.
It's a Black Bison Firestorm cover. It's all black. And Black Bison's jumping down from the top onto Firestorm. But I don't recall having seen anything like that before. I'm sure Burns' Snowblind cover would come later. I mean, I might be remembering them wrong. Maybe it's the black cover over the white cover, but like that one jumped off the stand in my shop, and it wasn't like I wasn't buying Firestorm. We all know I was, but like that, like I remember that one was limited. Like you could only buy 2 copies of it because it was going so much. There was just something striking about it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's important. How about you, Tony? Anything?
Yeah, I got it. It's Stray Bullets probably any Stray Bullets cover, but number 1 was obviously the one that made me sit back and go like, what is this? And you can make a comic book cover like that. I mean, first of all, it's like 2/3 just red. And it's just a big red block, and it says Stray Bullets, and it says David Lapham. And again, like we're talking about, like it's just one guy writing and drawing a thing and making a thing, and then it's a picture of, again, I was probably 15-year-old when this came out, maybe 16, and it's just a picture of a boy, near my age. This one stupider than I was, and he has a gun, and it has the moon and a creepy tree, and you can tell that he's in trouble, or something's really troubling him, and you want to read the book and find out why. And then when you do read the book, the answer is so much darker and so much worse than you could ever fucking possibly imagine. So it's a real good, like we're talking about page turns, like it's a real good setup and payoff of a cover. Yeah, it's great. It's perfect.
I have so many.
Well, it's your question, so
I know.
It's like we didn't have an answer. Cover.
Yeah. 11 Capes in the Time of COVID 1 because you're on it.
Well, I am. That is the cover that I am on. But there's two that are sticking. One is something that Mike had something to do with, because it was just insane and made me want to read it. It's a question. It's like maybe 19. It's the one with the sex doll on it.
Oh yeah.
That I remember picking that up and being like,
the omnibus that DC published that reprints that came out today.
yes. Oh, that's in. I knew that the second omnibus was coming out today.
Today,
Is that's in that one?
Yeah.
And I was. It was, yeah. So that makes more sense because I know I was in college.
What issue is it?
Like around 19. It was towards the end of the run.
Yeah.
Yep, 19.
The other one
have
that
all
sticks
those.
out,
I gotta look.
Oh, it's good story too. And Dennis killed it.
Yeah.
Dennis is finally getting his due. He is a brilliant storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other one is like it's George.
Oh yeah.
You remember, right? Like the story, like what Denny came up with in that particular issue, and the mania and desperation of the antagonist, was just Dennis just did everything to it and made it very real. But the other one is probably Christ on Infinite Earths 1, and a lot of I could spend an hour talking about the Christ on Infinite Earths covers, all of them.
Sure.
The amount of detail, and the way that things were laid out. Here, I'll put it up there. Yeah,
That's your question.
This is the question one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like I couldn't wait to get home. Well, I was, and it's funny because Mike and I have talked about this, but I don't know if you guys know this. So Hub City is East St. Louis, right? In case you don't know, Hub City is East St. Louis. That's what Denny wrote. But I was at the time, I was at college. I was at Rutgers, and I was living in New Brunswick. And New Brunswick's nickname is Hub City.
Okay.
So I thought it was all about New Brunswick at the time. Mike has told me later since that it was East St. Louis, but so I was walking around, New Brunswick reading that, and the funny part of it is there's an area of New Brunswick that is, got a lot of Magyar name in it, which Rick is, was the inker at times. So it was all coming together for me. Like question, that's why question was like so perfect at the time for me. But yeah,
there's two caveats to that.
Yeah.
The first is that East St. Louis at the time was a much worse city than we made it out to be in Hub City. There were stories real stories that happened in East St. Louis that we couldn't do because we didn't think anybody would believe it. And the second is that the city's gotten a lot better, and I've actually been there. So, we chased Tony out.
No, he's we go for a long time. He's a youngin. He's got to learn to.
It'd be funny if he showed up on Tom's camera.
I thought of another. You made me think of another one though. New Mutants 22.
Which one is that?
So that's in the Sienkiewicz run, which his covers are all beautiful.
They are all, every one of them, and he keeps sharing them lately.
Mm-hmm.
He does.
But that's Once Upon a Time, yeah.
Bill Sienkiewicz is the reason why I pay my internet bill.
Because it's a Disney cover married with the stuff he was doing, and I had never seen that done before, and I don't know if I knew that people had that many styles in them.
I gotta find a good cover. Gotta find a good one of it, because the first image is bad. This is a good one too, but I mean, you could tell. I could spend an hour talking about his covers on that too.
Here,
let's share this one. Stop sharing.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like the rest of his covers. I mean, it is, but it's not.
Yeah. The squirrels and so many things in there.
Yeah.
Whose is this? Yours, Tom?
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Another.
Yeah, that's great. Super good.
Yeah. Bill again. Both Bill. It's funny how close Bill and Dennis are, and the way that they're getting their due, is long overdue.
Both did Wu-Tang covers. That's important as well, I think. The RZA and the Jizza.
I get it.
Dennis and Bill did the promotion poster for the question before the question came out. And,
isn't that the cover of issue 1?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No, not at all, actually. But they did do the cover of issue 1. And today you think of Cowan and Sienkiewicz as a team. He inks Bill inks a lot of Dennis' stuff, and it's beautiful, it's brilliant, it's a perfect team. And I knew that 35 years ago, and Dennis, God bless him, gave me the piece.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's in his house.
Yeah, so it's framed and up on the wall, and it is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Well, this was a rousing success. We will continue to do question of the day on Pop Culture SquadCast. I enjoyed this. This is wonderful. I don't know if it's going to be a different question next time, so everybody needs to stay tuned. And I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop you guys into the green room. If you want to hang out afterwards, that's fine. If not, thank you, and we'll see you soon. And best of luck for
gentlemen. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you.
8 days left on the Kickstarter. I got a kitchen to fix.
Exactly. And don't forget to go to Amazon and March 27th for Feral and April 10th for Uncanny Valley, something like that.
I think so. Yeah, it's less than a month later. Pre-order both of those, please. Like I said, comics is real sketchy right now.
And don't forget to go get the Butthole comic, Local Man.
That's right, number 7. If you just want the butthole, but I would start at the beginning to really get.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you end up with the butthole.
Yeah, you want to build up to it.
Yeah,
you need to because We'll talk about it another time.
No buttholes
All right.
in Feral, by the way. No buttholes in Uncanny Valley. That's you
Yeah,
only get that.
they did that in Cats, right? So you're the cat without the buttholes.
We saw how that went with Cats, and we went a different way.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Great
Thanks,
stuff,
Ian.
guys.
Bye.
Right.
Thanks for having us.
You bet.
All right, Michael.
All right,
We've made it to the end of another, and we are going to be back next week. Everybody, please come back next week. We will have Katie Cook next week. You'll see
Yay.
the announcement starting tomorrow. You can remember or go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page and click remind me and it'll show up. We got more coming after that. One of them has been working with Mike Allred. So if that gives you an idea, it's not Mike Allred, but somebody who's been working with Mike Allred is coming after Katie Cook, and somebody else is going to be already booked for the third week after that. So and we got a lot of people lined up. Please keep commenting. We enjoy talking, having you guys be involved. Do that, and we will. You have any last words, Mike?
Yes, please go to our site, popculturesquad.com, where Bob and I and Mark and Ed write our little brains off every week. And I'd love to get some feedback from you folks. So
yeah, absolutely.
Please jump in the water.
Yeah. Again, go to the front of the comments, and there is a sign up page for our newsletter, which comes out weekly, and you'll get a recap of what's going on, get an idea about what's coming next. And thanks for being there, squad members. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, folks.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?